Welcome back to the Division 2. This was going to be like a rage/rant all because of one thing, but I can't be bothered. There are so many bugs in this game. It is completely plagued at the moment, and the main reason of it is New York. And I did a video talking about the scaling and stuff in New York recently. But today, as the devs would probably say, it's been amplified by a lot. Saying I'm disappointed is such an understatement. It's unreal. Literally within the space of 5-10 minutes, we were able, me, Con and Pete were able to put together a list, and I believe there are around 38 different bugs on this list that we're going to go through. I'm going to try and keep the video as short as I possibly can, but just know that these bugs are what we as a group have experienced through solo and group play. There are a lot of other bugs that people have been complaining about. For an example, someone I saw left a comment saying they actually fell through the map themselves. But starting off with this list, and the only reason I'm doing this is because this is bugs that, these are bugs that have come into the game during the expansion. It's a paid expansion, it costs £25. And upon, experiencing these bugs, it's clear that they did no testing for it whatsoever. I mean, that's probably been clear since the release of it, when people couldn't actually interact with the safe house leaders to get information on the bosses, like the manhunt agents. And most of these bugs, well, not most of them, a few of them started when we were running missions today. We were farming to try and put together a new build. That new build being ticking damage for the pestilence, and I can tell you now, because a lot of people told me skill damage was counted, it classed as skill damage when you did the ticking damage to enemies. And we had a look at the stats today. I was dealing, me and Con were dealing around 200 million skill damage with the pestilence in missions. So we started running the tombs over in New York, the mission to take down Theo Parnell, in order to get Hannah Yu, pieces of gear so that we could put together a build. And in that main building of the mission is where all of this started. So there was no vibration in controllers, there was no game sound, and there's a lot of other sound bugs. For some reason, me and Pete had a sound bug where it sounded like there was industrial machinery in the background, and that was all we could hear. We've had helicopter sounds coming into it when we're doing Riker's missions, the same sound you hear with the Black Tusk helicopters. They are dishing out the wrong season rewards, and that's the reason I'm making this video, because I was farming for a skill damage build. The force multiplier has a good talent for it, especially if you're using the pestilence. I got to level 60 in the season rewards. You'll see in the gameplay in the background when I hit level 60, and this has worked normally, it's worked fine for everyone else. When I hit level 60, I wasn't awarded the force multiplier backpack, I was given the quiet roar. At level 65, you are awarded the quiet roar, and what happened to me was at level 65, because I got there in the end, just to see if the rewards were reversed. And at level 65, I was awarded the Force Multiplier backpack. So it worked backwards for me between the backpack and the LMG. Now, that wouldn't be such a problem, and I mean, some of this is nitpicking, really, but at the same time, we're paying for this expansion. The season levels, the season rewards is when you pay for the premium track, you're paying £10 for it. And yes, essentially we got this first season for free, but regardless of it being free or not, they are set exclusive items. Each level's rewards are set items. So the fact that there is a bug and it's offering awarding different things, it's just stupid. And then alongside that, if you're this wasn't something I've experienced, but if you're playing in the DZ, I've heard the people are not actually leveling up, and that's just a whole different ball game. But alongside that, when people are leveling up, they're able to, and they're getting the caches, they're coming out as contaminated items. How can you mess up with a paid, the game's paid, so yeah, it kind of makes sense that they messed up with the whole thing. But this is something we're paying extra money for, and we're essentially back to the stage of beta testing for them. Yet we're paying them. It should be them paying us in order to test their products. Every single thing seems to work backwards at the moment. But alongside the first three, the Revive Hive isn't working all the time. The scaling, we've noticed today that 4-man heroic on the Tombs mission it wasn't impossible, we could have done it, but it was incredibly tough. When we dropped it down, when Pudster went offline, there were 3 of us, and we managed to get through the mission on heroic. So that one extra player made it that much worse. So the scaling in general was just broken. The loot, they said in State of the Game, is going to be more meaningful because it drops less. There's nothing meaningful about 2% damage to armor when that bar that goes up and eventually gets to the top to be a god roll, there was no line on that bar at all. We're getting purple drops out of crates and stuff, and I know the devs said, well, that's not challenging content, but to get to the crates, it's challenging when you're playing on heroic. And I believe, and I believe a lot of people actually agree with me on this, when you're playing challenging and heroic content, you should never see purples. Especially when you're running a supply drop, an open world activity, you open 5 crates and 2 of those crates contain purple. The loot in no way, shape or form is meaningful like 85-90% of the time. There are game crashes for a lot of other players. Missions and control points, when Con looked at his map in New York, they were not showing up at all. He had to restart his game. Control points aren't resetting, and they said that the enemies won't come along and take them anymore. You have to change your global difficulty, but that's not resetting control points. There is currently no way to have enemies be the leader faction of a control point in New York. They are always under friendly control. Textures are not rendering in properly. Half the time you're seeing rectangle heads and octagon heads because they're just all low poly kind of thing. It goes into a lot more depth, but basically the textures and stuff aren't rendering for a lot of stuff in the game. The stats at the end of missions are showing minus damage numbers. When you're looking at the activity summary, you're seeing minus 2.1 billion damage. Enemies are randomly spawning. We went into the tombs, which is a Riker mission. There were cleaners in the first door. And then we had all of the Rikers there as well afterwards. Enemies are still invisible like they were a couple of months back. We literally run into the first part of the mission. We see all of the red lines on the minimap, and then all of a sudden 5 seconds later the enemies spawn in. Seekers are not working all of the time. Armor kit crates, and I believe grenade crates as well, haven't actually awarded us anything. When we go to them, we can restock, but the armor kit crates and the grenade ones are already open and we can't use them. As we're shooting and stuff in New York, we are seeing clouds of smoke as if we're shooting walls. There are a lot of invisible walls still in the game. Isaac, when he gives us notifications, they're always delayed. There are enemies triggering combat outside of a mission, so if we're in the middle of a mission, there's enemies apparently in the area, so our armor never regenerates. When we're doing open world activities, there are enemies that are running a million miles away from the activity. So we're literally playing a game of kiss chase to try and complete that activity. There are enemies still getting stuck inside the doors. So you have to oxidize a chem launcher or just get lucky enough to be able to shoot them through the wall. Con's had a problem where he's not being alerted when he levels up shade level or seasons level. This one's very irritating, and the new brand sets, the Golan Gear, Hana Yu, they never ever show up as targeted loot in DC. When you go to New York, you'll have a couple of things from LMG targeted loot and stuff, but the new brand sets are never ever in DC. When you're sitting behind cover, full cover that covers your entire body, you can still be levered through it. After combat finishes and you're in the down state, it never gets you back up automatically. You have to be revived. When you're placing a turret, it's falling off cover and it's being rendered useless. You have to destroy it and wait 15-20 seconds to get it back. Another one with the revive hive, it seems to have charges. I've got 4 charges on mine, yet it destroys itself after 1 revive. And that's 1 revive on yourself or other players in your group. The sniper turret is randomly aiming itself into the air and not locking onto enemies. We're getting stuck in cover, so when you take cover behind an object, you can't move, you have to come out of cover and go back in. There are drones falling through the map. There are also drones hovering in missions, and the cleaner drones, the bombardier ones that come along and they drop loads of bombs, they're literally just hovering in areas after you've cleared out the combat area, and if you shoot the bombardier, the bomb parcel package thing underneath, it will actually drop the bombs and they will explode and possibly down you. The medics, for some reason, when they are reviving an enemy NPC, you can't stagger them and get them out of that. They will 100% get that revive. The shooting range damage yourself button is actually killing you now instead of putting you down to minimal health. There's a bug where you're not able to revive your teammates no matter what you do. You hold X and it just does nothing. The True Patriot armor buff isn't actually working in groups. It only works for solo play, even though it states in the talents, in the attributes, perks, whatever you want to call it, it states that it works for you and your allies, although it doesn't. And I don't know if you'd class it as a bug, but the enemies just seem to have taken some dying light parkour lessons. They are constantly just combat rolling everywhere. And the devs stated, again, the devs are telling us all this stuff and it's all a load of bullshit because they're supposed to be more tactical, more strategic. Combat rolling all the time is not a strategy, it's not a tactic. Not for an NPC. a non-player controlled, computer controlled character in a game that's an enemy. That is not tactical. But that is not a rage, that's not me sitting there whinging, complaining and stuff, that's me just stating what bugs are there in the game. The developers have charged a lot of money for the base game, then they've charged extra money on top of that for this expansion, and all we are getting is bugs. There is bug after bug after bug. So let me know your thoughts and stuff in the comments. If there are any bugs you've experienced that I didn't put on the list, let me know. But that's going to do it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.